Welcome back to the Coach Debbie Potts Show, where I'm on a mission to help you be fit and healthy from the inside out as you age. So, as we are active individuals hitting middle age, hopefully we're starting to be curious about what are we doing today to be our best self in the future so we can thrive and not struggle as we age. Just because you exercise consistently and eat healthy, is it the right foods for you? Is it the right workout for you? Are you causing more damage from the inside out by doing too much of everything? So today I am focusing on having guests help us understand what we can do today to be our best self in the future. So we're talking about how we can get muscle cramping, and might be during a race, might be middle of the night during a long training session. You get woken up with that calf cramp in the middle of the night that jumps you out of, makes you jump out of bed. I think that's pretty common from people I know. But for years, we've been told that cramps are caused by dehydration, low sodium, low magnesium, or simply not being fit enough. That's not the whole story. What if a cramp is actually a signal, which is fascinating because I've been diving into a lot of changes as we age, how they relate to signaling. And guess what? Our nervous system, how it's involved. So, another signal that our body's sending us is it a warning sign that something deeper beneath the surface is really happening. So, kind of goes with the major theme I've been focusing on this year, exploring on the podcast about signals and resiliency and understanding what happens, what changes as we age. As I was talking to my husband this morning about why do we take longer to recover? Why do we have these little niggles every now and then that we didn't used to have? It's not aging. I believe it's more the communication system is getting broken down, just wear and tear, right? So the older the house, our house is 25 years old, we're starting to have all these problems that we have to repair and replace things. Same with our body. We have to do things differently as we age. So understanding how our body's constantly responding to signals that we send it through the training we do, through the nutrition plan you follow, your sleep, your recovery, your stress, your lifestyle habits. But what I keep thinking about again and again is what signals is our body sending back to us? Not just what we are sending the body, but what is the body telling us? So today, the guest I have on the show to help us understand signals related to cramping, what that actually means is I love to go into the root cause behind everything, or causes. His name's Philip, and I'll say his name wrong, Shemansky, former rugby athlete, coach, and performance strategist who has spent years studying the science of cramping and pain. His work challenges the traditional belief that cramps are simply an electrolyte problem and instead explores the role of the nervous system, my favorite, neuromuscular fatigue, movement patterns, and recovery capacity. Another big word lately is capacity. So someone as myself who spent years racing Ironman triathlons, many marathons, endurance events, long bike rides, while running a business, a fitness studio, coaching and training clients, and doing all the behind the scenes work, pushing past that red flag of too much stress, I know firsthand how easy it is to ignore the body's warning signs. And as I keep saying, many of us athletes and high performers, type A, AAA personalities, take pride in that we can push through things. We're resilient. And we ignore discomfort. We train through fatigue. We don't stop, pause, and reset as much as we need to because we start to see those changes as we get older. The body starts to communicate a little louder, sometimes through declining performance, maybe poor recovery, through injury, and sometimes through cramps. And I wanted to dive into this topic because it obviously matches what we've been talking about every week all year, exploring why cramps happen. What is the body telling us through a muscle cramp? So if you are a high performing middle-aged individual who's active, athlete of whatever level, someone who might just want to be a health optimizer, continue aging strong, healthy, and being resilient, this conversation is going to help challenge you to think about pain, recovery, and performance. So let's dive in and talk about these misconceptions of cramping as we. Okay, Philip's on the podcast to help us understand what we can do differently in middle age to be even stronger, more resilient as we age for us aging athletes. I am excited for this conversation today. Welcome.
Yeah, I am too. I'm super excited. Thanks for having me on.
Tell us a little bit about you, what you do, and your why, your purpose is always my first question.
Yeah, I mean, I think I share a lot of the traits with the audience. I'm in my early 50s. I used to be a professional mogul skier and then played rugby at a relatively high level, and then got into endurance sports and got into a lot like you into distance cycling. I didn't do the tri thing, but then I've also had to learn how to adjust to my nutrition, my training, and really my lifestyle as a whole, where things that we took for granted when we were younger now are conscious things that have such an impact on our total quality of life situation. So yeah, my background, you know, out of the office is as I just described. But here at the Pickle Juice Company, what we try to do is carve out what we're calling a hyperfunctional space in the food and beverage industry. And we define hyperfunctional as finding products that are considered to be foods rather than supplements or medicines that solve an acute real life problem. And our flagship product, pickle juice, which has nothing to do with pickles or juice, it just shares a familiar profile, addresses muscle cramps. And it's the only product in the world that's scientifically proven to stop muscle cramps within 60 seconds. And it does so by interfacing with the central nervous system and essentially the neurological components that cause cramping. And I'm sure we'll get into the
Yeah,
science of that a little.
definitely. So the company's pickle juice is the name, right? That's
Mhm.
just pickle juice.
Well, it was, and then we developed the product. So the flagship product was pickle juice. But now, as we start doing research into other spaces like vasodilation, nighttime leg cramping, and we're looking at some VO2 max stuff as well. We're actually changing the company name to Hyperfunctional Brands because we're now becoming more than just pickle juice. So it's an exciting kind of life stage of our organization.
When did pickle juice company start?
So it's kind of a three-part answer. The company started in 2001, but for about 15 years, they were kind of packaging effectively pickle brine. And it was more of like a novelty thing. People didn't really understand the science. It stemmed from an NFL game between the Cowboys and the Eagles in the year 2000. That was like the hottest game on record. And all the Cowboys were cramping up, the Eagles weren't. Their trainers were being asked afterwards why they weren't cramping. They're like, they're drinking pickle brine. So then um, these folks started packaging pickle brine through the Golden Pickle Company. Um, and then I came along in 2015 and sort of thought this was a really interesting thing because I'd used acetic acid during in my past because I have a bit of a science and food science background. So I'd used acetic acid in certain applications, specifically for muscle cramping, but the way I was using it in a pure vinegar form was causing other problems, like, and it made it difficult to continue to perform. It was fine for like a recovery, but during exertion, it wasn't really a great solution. So I applied, I was able to join the company, took some science and information that was discovered by Dr. Kevin Miller in 2010 out of BYU, reformulated it, made the product USD organic, laser focused, identified the specific strain and grain of acetic acid that blocks the nerve receptors that cause cramping. And because working like at a central nervous system level with foods and interacting at that level is kind of intimidating to people. It was in 2015. So we figured, well, we can call it what it does or what it tastes like. So we stuck with the name pickle juice. Because I figured if I gave you a bottle of Cramp Stopper 9,000, you'd be skeptical at best. But um, and then for the past 10 years or so, we grew. We're in 17,000 stores in the United States. We have distribution in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Europe, UK, and Canada. So we're kind of all over, and we're being used by like two-thirds of the NFL, most of the baseball teams, really big in rugby because we had like a personal connection there, ultra running, endurance sports, stuff like that. And then a year ago, we were acquired by private equity groups. So now we're in like our next life cycle phase where we're injecting significant amount of resources to really scale this brand beyond our flagship product and into a whole new space to kind of um, create awareness to the general public about the hyper functional capabilities of foods and nutrition, both in an athletic and a non-athletic environment.
Hmm. So tell me, you're saying it was pickle juice, the brine of pickle juice originally, but then explain what it actually is that it's not pickle juice now.
That's not pickle brine, believe it or not. Pickle juice is a trade name like Band-Aid, Xerox, Kleenex, because nobody's out there juicing pickles, right?
Yeah.
So we often have to educate people on the difference between pickle juice and pickle brine. But um, pickle juice, our product, is a it's developed in a lab using a proprietary grain of acetic acid, as I mentioned, that interfaces with the exact same nerve receptors that cause muscle cramping. So effectively, we found a way to overwhelm that neural pathway with information. So it kind of resets the signal because a muscle cramp in very simple forms is just a hyper engagement of the muscle, right? So when we know in a macro sense, if you flex your bicep, you have to release your tricep, et cetera, et cetera. If we picture that on a microbiological level, where you get like, if you've ever had an exercise-induced cramp, you know, it's like preceded by like that twinging, that twinging where you're like, oh no, I'm about to get a cramp. So you try to like maintain your cadence. You're like, if I just don't do anything, and then it comes anyway. But that twinging is your body's. It's an attempted corrective response, neurological response to a physiological trigger, right? So your brain's going, hey, there's something wrong with that muscle group. So it's trying to affect a massage, like kind of pulse that to sort of get more fluids, electrolytes through that problem area. Eventually, that signal, that engaged signal, increases in rapidity to the point where the release signal can't keep up, and now you've got like an over engagement. It's like engage, 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 and that's what that Charlie horse on muscle cramp is. What we do is we block that signal from getting through, so it kind of resets and then flood the problem area with a ton of electrolytes. So it's kind of a 1-2 punch. And that's what prevents it from coming back for about 45 minutes.
Yeah. So the ingredients of the product now come in a bottle. Do you have one there? I
Mhm.
didn't bring mine up. I had the
Dude,
spicy one in the fridge.
the
Yeah,
green bottle in front of my green
the
shirts
green
all down
bottle.
my face.
Yeah, yeah, your camouflage.
Yeah.
So the new as nutritional therapy, you're saying is it's food based. It's not chemicals. You
Right.
created it, but it's not chemicals. It's real food ingredients or
Mhm.
natural ingredients.
Yeah, moreover, it's USD organic certified. We sell it in grocery stores. We sell it
Yeah.
as a food. We sell it through natural foods distributors. Matter of fact, you and I met at a natural foods
I was gonna say it has to
expo.
be organic if it's at Expo West.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Huh.
yeah. So we're just trying to get people thinking differently about the power of food. And I think, when I started being a competitive athlete in the 90s, we didn't really know anything about nutrition, right? We knew carbs the night before, protein day of, and don't drink and smoke. That was it. That was the extent of our knowledge of nutrition. And now, like the evolution of nutrition science has been enormous and arguably the biggest step forward in sort of sports preparation and development. So yeah, we're
Mm.
just trying to take that to the next level.
Yeah, that's great. So, kind of tying it with the question I had down for you, speaking to our audience, middle-aged, aging athletes just sounds, I don't know if I like that term. Aging athletes just sounds so old, but middle-aged high performers. Most
Yeah.
athletes, we've been told that cramps are caused by dehydration or low electrolytes.
Hmm.
Just mentioned a lot of information, but what do you would you say to that is the biggest misconception that people have why cramps occur?
Yeah, well, the good news is they're kind of right. The bad news is they're also kind of wrong. Um, so muscle cramps are, as I said earlier, are a neurological response to a physiological trigger. So what we've been focusing on in the past is a physiological trigger. That could be an electrolyte imbalance, it could be circulatory, it could be dehydration, it could be any number of things. And this is why when you talk to 10 people, you get 12 different answers on muscle cramps, and it's like eat a banana, stretch, hydrate, whatever. I joke that the whole banana thing was propagated by Big Banana, mostly because it's funny to say Big Banana, because I'm like, people consume bananas because they think it's a potassium issue, but bananas aren't really the most efficient delivery system of
Also,
potassium
banana. Yeah.
anyway. Like eat a kiwi. But anyway, those are all the triggers. And what causes the cramp is the neurological response to those triggers. So what we do is, and that's why this product works so fast. And theoretically, if somebody else developed another neural inhibitor, it would work just as quickly. So far, we're the only ones that have kind of figured it out. But there's other products on the market that are trying. Um, but the neural inhibition component is why it addresses the cramps so quickly. And at the end of the day, as we age, I tell people that I'm a recovering athlete, which means I'm now a completer rather than a competer. Um,
That's
but
big.
as we age, the body has to work harder, right? So that's why we're more prone to nighttime leg cramps as we get older because the heart has to work harder to pump the blood through our extremities. And that's why it's so common to get them in like your calf or your feet at night. That's a circulatory issue.
Mm.
Um, Women tend to get are more prone to muscle cramping when they're pregnant because you're sharing all of your nutrients with the whole human that's like stealing it from you. But that's another trigger that stimulates a neurological response. So the common denominator to all these various triggers is the
Mm.
neurological response.
So the neurological response. So first, I was asked, as I told you before we started, I was asked why. I try to think, okay, why does it harder to recover as we get older? What's really going on to cause that? As you said, recovery, we everything we have to work harder. Why? Why is that?
Man, it's a loaded question. I mean, I would my answer to that would be using the analogy of just a car with mileage, right? Like your system just isn't as efficient, right? I mean, we all remember in our 20s, we could just eat whatever we want, go have 1 hour of sleep, and then go run a marathon. Didn't even think twice about it. Now I injure myself sleeping. Like, we joke, but I think it's that our system becomes less efficient over time, and it's due to mileage, right? And there's healthy mileage, there's unhealthy mileage, there's kind of a weird combination of both,
Mm.
right? Where if we're doing high impact endurance, it's healthy on one side of thing and unhealthy on another, right? Your knees aren't happy with that. But I think in a very simple way, it's just the vehicle, the vessel
Mhm.
is suffering from wear and tear. Um, the complexity of it all is, gets very granular depending on what system you're looking at. But I guess that's the sort of top level plain way I would share it, if that makes any
Well,
sense.
I think it's understanding the why and things change as we age and middle age start to see it more and feel it more. But my brain is like, all right, how can we override course correct? And get these signals stronger. If we have to have twice as much protein because the stimulating muscle protein synthesis to activate mTOR, we need a lot more leucine in that threshold and hit those essential amino acids. And the nervous system, the vagus nerve we talk about, you have to get it stronger to do what it's doing and give it the nutrients it needs for acetylcholine and all that. So it's more like, okay, what's going on? What can we do? What can we do today to take ownership of how we're aging, understanding what changes, what we get less of, and what we need to do, be even better at creating that stronger signal to keep that communication system working, like remodeling your
Well,
house or repairing your house.
um, sadly, I have bad news for anybody who suffers from muscle cramps because about 50% of us are just prone to them and 50% of us are not. Now, we become more sensitive to those triggers, right? But the neural response is the neural response. It's just the sensitivity to those triggers that we can address. However, the
Mm-hmm.
same problem with conventional treatments of muscle cramping was you kind of have to guess which trigger you're prone to. Now, if you have a condition like have you suffer from low sodium, just an arbitrary condition that would cause a trigger, then you know to supplement that, right? If you suffer from low potassium, low calcium, whatever, you know to supplement. And obviously, most of us are getting blood work done more regularly. We're kind of taking the car to the shop a little more, I guess. But it starts with awareness. So ironically, the conventional way that cramps have been addressed has been trying to like guess at the trigger. But here's the thing, that trigger can vary depending on your situation, right? So if you're getting a cramp doing whatever, say I'm riding a Century in Texas in 100-degree heat,
Yeah.
the probability that it's being driven by sodium depletion and and resulting dehydration is probably a lot higher than if, say, I'm just standing on a trade show floor all day long in a controlled environment, which is like concentrated strain on one muscle group, which is another trigger. So what we do is actually bypass those triggers um, and address all of it in an acute sense. So we're more of like a prophylactic resolution to complement people as they evolve their trigger treatment, I guess we could call it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I wish I had an answer to identifying exactly which trigger it is. But in most cases, it works in a post-mortem. I can be like, okay, tell me how you cramp. Tell me in what situation you're prone to cramping. And then I can recommend you do this, 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 and this. And should you break through, here's what you're going to do. But a lot of folks just, no matter what they do, or funny thing is, um, a lot of people get nighttime leg cramps, right? So they're like, hey, well, if you hydrate, then if you hydrate before bed, the probability of getting a leg cramp is reduced. However, now you're creating another problem. You have to get up in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
So there's kind of offsetting issues that we have to deal with as well. And at times we have to sort of pick the lesser of two evils if that's a thing.
So just to clarify and summarize, if the cramps, you're saying cramps is nervous system event rather than just muscle problem or electrolyte imbalance, right?
Mhm.
So you're saying that it might be electrolyte imbalance, it could be a nervous system balance. There's different patterns you see in people and how they respond and when it occurs. So going back to connecting the dots together, what's happening between the brain to the nervous system and the muscles during a cramp? What's that
Yeah.
connection?
Your brain's essentially trying to affect a massage from the inside out. Your brain's going, hey, there's a problem area, and I'll use my right calf as an example because when I'm riding my bike, it seems to always be my right calf that goes first. And so if I'm riding my bike and I get this twinging sensation, the best way I can describe that is that twinging sensation is sort of like your body trying to affect a massage from the inside out. It's trying to work that muscle and sort of improve the circulation and direct like your electrolyte supply, your blood flow, just kind of all the tools available to itself to that area. Now, it's and that twinging gets faster and faster and faster because it's like, hey, this isn't working well enough. Let's kind of increase the rate. Well, your central nervous system can only process so much information at a given time. And at some point, that release signal can't keep up with the engage signal. So now we're going engage, engage, engage. Now it locks up. So when you consume a neural inhibitor, whether it's pickle juice or some theoretical other neural inhibitor, that when you drink it, it's received by your esophageal receptors at the back of their throat, which is essentially the same information highway. Picture cars converging in a tunnel and creating a traffic jam, right? Or a narrowing of lanes or whatever, same kind of thing. So we're overwhelming that pathway with information, blocking the signal from getting through, and it resets. So it could be any number of triggers, but we're attacking the neurological response system.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was like to understand the why, and analogies are always good. The freeway system getting clogged. And that would, I've talked about that before, just a side note of the role of the nervous system and the lymphatic system and the fascia. And if the fascia is dehydrated, it compresses the nerves running through it. And if that has to impact that signaling, if with the nervous system.
Yeah, I mean that I would consider that one of the triggers. It's kind of interesting because what you're talking about specifically with the fascia is like it's kind of the gray area, right? Is that a trigger as a part of the response? But I would argue that it would be a trigger as long as it's not inhibiting the signal from getting through, which in all of our clinical trials and university studies we've never seen. Um, so I don't, so I would categorize that as a trigger rather than a response, but it's really fun to explore those kind of gray areas, if you will,
Yeah.
because what's fascinating is with this neural inhibition stuff, the science is really, really new and evolving. There are really only like three studies that, or th three groups that have conducted studies. The first one was Dr. Kevin Miller and his team at BYU discovering that muscle cramps are a neurological phenomenon in the first place. Then we've conducted numerous studies, including one kind of recently through the University of Stirling University, using the UK national swim team as our test subjects. And then there's a company out of Boston called Flex Pharma, who produced a product called Hotshot that did their own independent studies as well on neural inhibition, and they were using capsaicin for their product, um, which they felt was also an adequate neural inhibitor. So the science is kind of new, it's evolving. A lot of it is still anecdotal as we learn more and more about our users, and people will come to us and be like, hey, I use it for this, and we'll say, well, we don't make any claims that we haven't
Mhm.
like tested, put through clinicals and validated, but it's pretty interesting and it gives us a lot of direction into how we can interact with the central nervous system to affect real things in our body and sometimes acute needs, and doing it in a way that isn't disruptive, it's healthy, it's not going to cause a bunch of weird consequences and not going to put us on a bunch of meds. And I'm of the mindset that I'm a big believer in taking natural vitamin supplements. I don't want to be medicated.
Yeah. It's so with the cramps, you say are more type of cramping can be a protective mechanism. And if the brain sending a signal, as I think it was Tim Noakes went into that, the water, what was it called? Water something, but just how cramps, it's not, as you're saying, dehydration, but it can be a protective mechanism as well in one of the categories.
Um, I wouldn't classify it as a protective mechanism. It's not like a malic acid buildup or anything like that, where it's telling your body, hey, slow down or you're going to get hurt. It's identifying a problem area. So I want to be clear that blocking and resolving a cramp isn't causing physical harm to your body. The activity of cramping itself um, can do the reason you're sore after it, almost like you worked out, is because you're getting that same micro tearing experience that you do when you're like building muscles. But um, what we're doing is resetting and allowing the body to operate the way it's supposed to operate. So we're not like blocking a natural protective tool. And I'm pretty careful about saying that because people are like, oh, are we blocking a cramp and then
Yeah.
causing injury? And that's not the case at all. And we've actually never heard or been able to correlate any type of like after effect, even people that are using it for like hours and hours on end with multiple doses. Um, so I wouldn't say that it's a protection. I would say that the cramp is an attemptive response to a physiological trigger, but that trigger in and of itself, if you're hydrating properly, if you're taking sodium in and you're doing the things that you're supposed to be doing, you're fine. It's the you just can't like be negligent of the triggers, right? It's like, hey, if you're
Hmm.
losing salt, take in salt. If you're if you're sweating a bunch, hydrate. Well, hydrate anyway, right? So
Hmm.
the blocking neurological signal in and of itself has no negative effect. Ignoring other signs and symptoms, of course, does, but those are isolated to that.
Yeah, so true. People tend to ignore things and push past everything as I keep recording on my episodes. Why we end up having issues is more we avoided the engine light on our car, or I need fluid added, all the lights on your dashboard in your car. The same thing what your body is telling you. What signals is our body sending us? And what signals are we putting in is always what I keep coming back to. It's not just what we're telling our body, we're sending those signals and it's getting adapting to that. But then we're ignoring often those signals coming back and just kind of push past it because we're tough, we're resilient, and we can get
I
through
don't
all
know
that.
anything about that. It's especially with endurance athletes, right? I mean, triathletes in particular, ultra runners, they're like some of
Yeah.
my most favorite people. But also, not to get completely off subject, but why is like portable nutrition always sweet? Like it's like, give me salty.
Mm-hmm.
That's like I
Yeah,
at no point do I recall wanting sweet when I'm like
true.
trying to get in as many calories as I can while on the
Hmm.
move.
Yeah, no, I remember races that you just need something. And I know you said Texas. I had friends that were doing a 50K trail run in September. It was ridiculously hot and humid, and they actually had containers of pickle juice that you can take shots of on the course. And they were just handing it out, but not your pickle juice, but just the brine. It was in a bottle. I don't even know what it really was, but they would drink it to help. But yours, you're saying it's a different makeup than just drinking the juice out of a bottle of
Right.
pickles, is what you always have to explain, probably.
Yeah. So pickle juice, the product, has nothing to do with pickle brine, the preservative. And
Yes.
if people are looking for the same result, they'll be disappointed. Um, a lot of people conflate the two because it the flavor is similar. I wouldn't say it's identical, but it's similar. And if you were to drink our product, you'd be like, that tastes kind of like pickles. Incidentally, if they were doing a 50K trail race in Texas, it probably was our product in one of our large formats that
Oh,
we do for trails because we've worked with Trot for a long time with trail racing over Texas and a bunch of others because we're based in Dallas. So
it was
most
in
of the
Paris,
endurance.
Texas. Never knew there was a Paris in the US, but Paris, Texas. And flat as can be ever for 50K horrible race course. But yeah, so it helped out. But just going back to the questions, I think it's interesting if accumulation of fatigue. Is that
Mhm.
related to cramping, or is muscles getting tired, or just the nervous system? We kind of covered that, but just anything else to cover on the different categories. As we get older, we tend to get, like, I've been having cramps in the middle of the swimming pool, as you're saying, you're just like, oh, it's coming, it's coming. And then I'm in the middle of the lane and people are coming at me. I'm like, I got to dog paddle and sit on the ledge and get out. And it's just understanding the accumulation of fatigue is one category. Muscles are getting tired. Or, the category two is the nervous system. Is it nervous system getting fatigued? Talk about these categories again, because I think that's a key point.
Yeah, so before I do that, I'll give you some good news. You can actually use these products prophylactically and they'll block the cramp for about 45 minutes. So if
I took it
you're,
swimming. It did do that.
yeah, so that's the good news for anybody who has the same problem. It's like knows they're going to cramp. As long as you're within a 45-minute window, it's going to help you a lot. But yeah, like we were talking earlier, I mean, it's just the body wearing down and maybe not absorbing or operating as efficiently, right? I mean, it's a lot more difficult to I mean, something as overt as building muscle mass, right? I think that's the most obvious thing where like, wow, this is a lot harder to maintain or our skin's the biggest organ we have. Like stuff's just getting harder to keep tight and the stuff. But yeah, I think we just need more fuel and different types of nutrients to keep the system moving. And, not to oversimplify it, but I guess that's why at my age, I'm not going to go run as nearly as fast as I did when I was 20, because no matter what I do, it doesn't matter. My system just isn't operating as efficiently as it did when it was in the build phase. I think we're now in the we kind of peaked and sort of now we're in the maintenance phase. But when you're building, it almost feels like when you're growing, you're constantly building muscle, right? Your body's in a constant building stage. And now we're just not. The human body just isn't designed to do that. Um, Even if you look at really, really active, like you look at these blue zones where people are living to be 100 years, usually because they have active lifestyles, but not exercise. It's like they're gardening. They happen to walk 1 billion steps to the church. There's a place in Italy that's like a vertically built place, but those people are they're just moving more.
Yeah.
So, but they're still not like as efficient as they were when they were younger.
Yeah.
So that would indicate that no matter what you do, you're going to break down, and we can limit that and we can supplement it, but aging is aging, right?
Yeah. I'm still trying to override it. But same, we've been looking at possibly moving to southern Spain for a few months a year and, live part-time there. And you look at all these towns in Costa Brava, they're all hilly as Costa del Sol. And I always think of that when the blue zones, all the towns, if you watch any of those videos, they have a gazillion stairs and they're all uphill from the water up these side hills that, even places to rent, they all had all these stairs. Like, okay, my mom is 85, can't do that. She can't come stay with us for a month. And so it is funny how you look at our aging lifestyle in the non-blue zone type of world environments. They're
Yeah.
quite different.
Yeah. Well,
But
I was just visiting my parents in Europe, and they're in their mid 70s, and they walk and ride their bicycle to do chores, to like go
oh,
to the bakery
love
in the
that.
morning, because it's part of the culture.
Where
And
are they?
they're in Belgium.
Hmm.
Um, and it's just how you do things, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's
and the
normal.
whole lifestyle is built around movement. Like their fridges are smaller. Like they don't go to grocery store once a month, once a week and buy a bunch of preservative laden stuff. They go to the baker and the bread goes stale in 2 days if you don't eat it. But they're walking to the baker every morning. They're riding their
Yeah.
bicycle to the grocery store. And I think a lot of it is cultural. And
Hmm.
you don't see like the life expectancy there is a lot higher than it is here. And you just don't see people that look physically unhealthy, if that's a polite way to say it, because I think culturally they just move more.
Yeah. And that's why I see here we're moved from Seattle 5 years ago, 6 years almost. This Friday will be 6 years. But the ocean coastal towns. You just see people surfing that are older. And I just think I'm getting off the topic, but side notes, I think surfing is the best way to keep active as you age because you have the ocean, the minerals, salt water, sunlight. So you get the grounding and the minerals, all that benefits. And then you have mobility, stability, intervals, strength. You have to balance. You have it all. So I think that's amazing. All right, back on track. I
Mental
want to
health.
ask,
Sorry,
yeah,
I was just going to add the mental health of like the achievement and the joy part, right? And it keeps your brain stimulated.
brain work. Yeah.
Just kind of like, yeah, it's I wish I had the ability to surf, but
Yeah, I
kind
don't.
of lived it in Dallas.
Well, yeah, it's hard, but hang out all the time. Feel like I live at Solana Beach or inland, but I watch people Del Mar, Solana Beach, Encinitas surfing, and it just always like, oh my gosh, that is just how you should age. Is just if you can keep that sport up, gives so many benefits. So with that, it kind of ties in the next question on stressors, because in middle age we have so many stressors. People taking care of their kids growing up, taking care of their parents during that middle age of life that you've got both ends of your family to take care of. And then hormones change. People work stress is more demanding as we get older. If you might have, higher up, more responsible jobs. And then sleep suffers. And people don't recover from workouts. As I've done a lot of podcasts with people as Joe Friel, that you need 2 days off a week and active recovery days. And so many people don't. So what do you think life stressors, they'll accumulate, chronic stressors accumulate and impact our ability with this cramping?
We haven't done any specific testing to like that's like the next level stuff, which I love. And by the way, I love the questions you're posing. And I'm not just saying that because we're on your podcast. Oftentimes we get just like kind of the superficial stuff, right? And we're like, well, A plus B equals C. But I love that this like next level stuff, and you've really encouraged us to kind of dive deeper into the patterns that lead to some of these trigger moments. Um, but I'll go back to saying, and again, this is anecdotal because we haven't done specific research to this yet, but I think next time we see each other, I'm going to tell you that we probably are doing something in that realm because it's really fun. Um, but I would say just again, going back to that overall vehicle thing, right? And um, stress becomes real, and the perception of stress, the awareness of time, and these other things that compound, and we know that um, stress will ha can affect has physical symptoms, right? And more than just like, oh, well, if I'm stressed, I can't sleep, and if I can't sleep, I don't recover, and if I don't recover, I'm
Yeah.
tired. But like, you see people like physically looking different, their skin looks different, they gain weight, whatever, even though they don't change anything else. Um, so I think it becomes more important to manage that because we become more prone and susceptible to it. But I think to your point, the stress gets more real as you get older, right? The you kind of peak, especially when we're in this kind of like between 40 and 60 phase of like doing everything but planning, and you're probably at like the peak of responsibility for both your life and your job and all of these other things. So, and time is, we've heard it said 1,000 times. Um, Time becomes the most valuable asset, right? It's, we still need all the Maslowian things, but really we're pressed for time. And what do we give up first? The things that we consider to be optional or discretionary, and we don't treat things like meditation and exercise and movement and eating healthy. We don't treat those as mandatory oftentimes when really we should, because all the other stuff becomes a lot easier if you're taking care of yourself.
That's what I do. That's why I created the Future You Blueprint package for people to take ownership of the health. And we work on that. That's priorities, not taking 20 supplements, but you got to do the work. And there's not a magic pill to do all that work, right? To get up out of bed and get outside in nature and do some breath work and morning sunlight and make sure you're not sitting more than an hour at a time and all this, the lifestyle habits and what we eat, but how we're eating, how we're digesting our food and all of that, I think is so important to working on recovery from our workouts is quality sleep, deep restorative sleep. So you wake up feeling fresh so you can have a good quality workout. But I think tying it together with aging and what changes that we talk about the signals, and my word of the year is resiliency. And if people are cramping and having all these problems frequently, is to me as a health investigator understanding the why mechanism of action. Okay, why are these reoccurring cramps for this person? Is it a sign that their recovery capacity doesn't match the stress load they're placing on their body? Their capacity is changing. As we said, things change as we age. Don't blame it, embrace it. I would say do things differently. But this extra load, I think we have too much on. It's kind of the imbalance in your bank account. You have pulled more withdrawals and deposits.
I love that analogy. I think it's right. What I think what I would encourage people that are listening to do is if you all of a sudden start experiencing cramps on a regular basis, look at the common denominator of your behavior leading up, right? And then not only, and don't be like, oh, when I swim, I get muscle cramps. It's okay, when I'm swimming, I'm probably sweating and not realizing it, right? Or am I losing sodium? Am I doing this? Am I doing that? And then that will help you identify a constant trigger if you're cramping from the same thing. So then you can identify your trigger and address that trigger while still being able to use the neural inhibition tools as like an acute remedy. Um, and that's what we've done with some athletes where it's like we work backwards from the acute treatment and then be like, okay, let's identify the why. And some of them just don't retain sodium as well as others, right? So we're like, okay, let's sodium load you before X, Y, and Z. I think as we get a little older, those moments are not confined to space. So we have to really monitor ourselves on a 24-hour basis rather than within the whatever time we're doing the thing during which we get muscle cramps. And I think maybe that's what becomes more difficult is to manage your routine on a 24/7 cycle rather than, okay, I've got a game on Saturday. I start my nutrition plan Thursday night and then through the game, and that's it. And it's finite. And then that finite cycle starts again. But it's really now we're talking about an infinite cycle that's also constantly evolving. So it's knowing your body, right? Which is what you're helping people do.
Yeah, paying attention. I think it's using intuition, but you can't use your intuition if you can't feel your body. I think a lot of that is people being sympathetic dominants. They're in that fight, flight, or freeze mode, and they can't feel what's going on in their body. They're not aware of those signals because they're almost frozen. They can't connect with it.
Or we've
Signals.
conditioned ourselves to ignore them. I've had some like orthopedic issues from being a rugby player and a freestyle skier.
Yeah, I would think
And
so.
you just condition yourself to deal with the pain, and that's your new normal. And then, well, it's like, well, deal with it. And I
Mhm.
did, and not to overshare, but I had my hips replaced. And I was like, why didn't I do this before? Because that was a thing that was just broken. And
Yeah.
no amount of like thing I was going to do other than physically repair that thing that was physically broken was going to fix it. But that changed my entire lifestyle because I was in pain. And, I think that's kind of another thing, make sure that vessel is put together in a way that you're taking not me better care of it but also kind of nurturing it and keeping it moving and doing the things that we know keep ourselves healthy, right? Keep your brain moving, keep get that sunlight, get that human interaction, move.
Yeah. Well, that kind of goes into the next question is why can two athletes doing the exact same workout have completely different outcomes, one with cramping and the other one finishing strong?
I'm going to say the same thing all the research has told us. We don't know. And that's the wildest thing. All we know is about half of us cramp and the other half don't. We haven't figured out the why of that piece. We know there are certain triggers that create a neurological response that cause cramping. What we don't know is why some people don't have that neurological response. What we also don't know is, can you train your brain to not have that response? Theoretically, if it's a neurological thing, you should be able to exercise your way like mentally into understanding and blocking, because that's the whole knowledge is power thing. But we haven't been able to apply that in a real functional way. So that, like in the space of cramping, is probably the biggest mystery. Why do half of us cramp and the other ones don't? Um, it's a question that is asked in every single study, and no one's been able to answer it.
What are any genetic SNPs correlated to cramping? I'll have to look at my reports.
I haven't seen any studies that look at like genetic frequency and redundancies and stuff like that, because we don't know kind of enough about that neurological response. We just know it exists
Mm-hmm.
and we know what triggers it. But so we're still kind of in the infancy of understanding neural engagement. Um, I look at this from a timeline perspective. I'm like, we're kind of in like the days, the hours and days phase of this knowledge gathering that I don't know if we've gotten to, or if anybody's done a study of like, okay, you cramp, does everybody in your family cramp? Or, you know, you don't
Yeah.
cramp, does everybody in your family cramp? I don't know. I don't personally know of any study that's looked at that.
Yeah. It's hard to do. So, someone experiencing the cramp during exercise, as in the middle of the pool, hopefully not a lake or ocean or a bike ride, what's the fastest way, most effective to relieve it? Do I need more LMNT with a higher dose sodium, magnesium, potassium, or is it more? We talked about this already, but is it more a neurological issue? Like, how do you know what response you should do and why?
Right. So the taking the neural inhibitor, like in our case, pickle juice, will stop the cramp in 60 seconds. That's it. It'll also prevent it from recurring for 45 minutes. Um, what it does not do is identify for you what the trigger is that caused that neurological response. It'll reset that signal. So you really need to continue to listen to your body and be like, okay, well, I'm sweating a bunch. I need to take in sodium, but different scenarios, different things. Also, people just have different like electrolyte compositions. Some people have developed circulation issues as they age, right? So that could be the trigger in and of itself. So maybe the answer is wear taller compression socks. Again, I'm just making stuff up. So that trigger management is different from the cramp management, if that makes any sense.
I'm lots of, I used to the socks. I put those compression socks in an Ironman Hawaii one year and it was dying. I got to the finish line, like, take these things off me because I couldn't do it when you're racing. And I just wanted to pull over, take my shoes off, and pull those sleeves off of my calves, but they did not work for me. So they made it too tight and everything was seizing up, and you're just trying to override that pain signal. Get to the finish line, then deal with it. Get the
Yeah.
ART people to save me. But yeah, so what you're saying is we don't really know what the trigger is. This will work, but we still need to identify what's triggering this neural response. You can't tell if it's sodium or potassium or magnesium, maybe unless you do a hair tissue mineral test or a micronutrient test. I mean, we're really not knowing
Well, it
what's
could be
that.
any of the number of things, and it's not always the same thing for every person, right? So I could be in one scenario where that response is being triggered by like sodium depletion. I could be in another scenario where it's driven by a circulatory situation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like I think when I'm on
Mhm.
my bike, it's probably circulatory because I'm in that like same position and the blood flow is sort of restricted to my
Mhm.
calf. Um, but if I'm running or playing rugby or skiing, I don't have that constriction, so I don't have that problem, but I might have a different problem, which causes a different type of cramping. Like when I played rugby, I used to get side stitches, and when I ride my bike, I would get calf cramps. Different scenario, different trigger,
Hmm.
different mechanism, same response, same treatment. In either of those cases, the cramp went away, but that trigger is a different thing. So
Hmm.
unless you have the exact same consistent trigger that you have identified, that'll prevent the activity from occurring, which is kind of knowing your body. And if you're behaving consistently and in a pattern, you might be able to identify that. But
Hmm.
even then, it could change. I mean, the climate could change how your body responds to whatever you're doing. So your exertion levels, um, your pulse. I mean, it's pretty wild. So that's why we just skip over the triggers because there's like a dozen of them,
Yeah,
and
there's
you
a
can't
lot.
treat them all at once because now you're getting into different
No, but just take
types of
that. So
symptoms.
you would just take a shot of the bottle before
Mhm.
workout. That's 45 minutes. And if you're going longer than that, you just
Take it
put it
with
in your
you. Yeah.
pocket, take it again every 2 hours or every hour.
Yeah, like I usually what you do is you wait to the point of cramping, get as close as you can without breaking through, and take it at that point. But to your point, if you take it at 8 in the morning, it's not going to help you hide in the afternoon.
Yeah. But I was taking it, I did try it before master swim workout, which is in a pool right beforehand, but probably just to avoid it, but probably it's better to wait until I'm drowning in the pool than to get
No, no,
exaggerated.
not
But
like that. Yeah, I'm thinking more like if I'll go back to like a 100-mile bike ride, right? Because that's a long period of time.
yeah.
Unless you're using it to sodium load, which is a completely different thing, there's really no point in taking it like mile 1 through 30 because like I don't have symptoms until I get to like mile 50 or 60, depending on how hard I'm pushing and how hot it is. So if it's like, well, I'm just going to start taking this stuff now, you're probably not doing anything unless you need to sodium load because it's got a fair amount of sodium. But as far as the neural inhibition thing, it's not like you can build it up like glucosamine or something like that. So you just have that 45-minute window to work within, and then you want to like take it again and take it again. So if your full exercise regimen, like for team sports, we'll tell people take one at the beginning, two at the halftime, and then keep one ready in case you come through. That's for prolific crampers, and usually they're okay. Um, but if you're like super long stuff, again, you've got to work to as close to that 45-minute window as you can to maximize efficacy.
Good. Yeah. So the like long bike rides would be easy to just throw in your back pocket.
Yeah, or do what I do and put it in your seat tube when it's 100 degrees because um, I put in my seat tube bottle, and
Oh
so
yeah.
we use the polar ice bottles here because
Keep
it's
it
so
cool.
hot. And we like fill them with ice and then top them off with water, which I think is what everybody does. And then I take one of these little 2.5 ounce bottles and plunge it in there in my C2 bottle, because that's kind of the spare anyway. And then when I get to whatever aid station is, mile 50 to reload or whatever, unless I'm just stacked up for a nonstop ride, um, it's not like really warm because I personally don't love the taste of it as a tea. It's kind of like,
Yeah. Warm is
whoa,
not
this
good.
warm pickle. It works, but it's just kind of like warm gels, right? Nobody loves
Mhm.
like a hot gel. You're like, oh, this is not great.
Yeah. It reminds me of when I was working with Ben Greenfield coaching and he was doing Ironman Canada, then Ironman Hawaii is helping watching, and he was doing this kind of keto experiment, MCT oil on the bike ride. And he made this whole bike bottle filled with stuff. And I think he had problems because it was so gross when it was warm. You just can't drink it, just kind of ruined it. Oh, if it tastes horrible, I'm not going to do it. And you just avoid it anyway. So, not good to do. All right, let's wrap it up. Give you what is one thing from this big conversation with lots of tangents today. What do you want them to understand about pain, cramps, and signals their body is sending them?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is understand that muscle cramps are a neurological phenomenon and you can treat them acutely, by using a neural inhibition product. I make one called pickle juice. There may be others out there. Um, you can treat prophylactically up to 45 minutes. However, if it won't identify the triggers, so understand your body. If you have the same recurring thing that could be categorized as a trigger, whether it's circulatory, nutrition, hydration, or electrolyte based, you still need to address that to kind of prevent it from happening in the first place. But what we offer is an acute relief, not a kind of preventative solution, because those triggers could be any number of things, and it could be different for the same person on different occasions.
Mm-hmm. I will just finish saying that I had, these muscle cramps just recently swimming, but it was because I started cycling uphill, an hour bike ride. So your foot in the pedal, I can't move my hand that way, but your
Yeah.
ankle's this way. When you go swimming, it's that way. And so it was not electrolyte, because that was a good example. I thought is that I was drinking LMNT, what I have often in my bottle during the day. And so I was drinking electrolytes and taking my magnesium. So you kind of have to go through your own checklist. I already was doing that. I was already doing that because everyone in the pool, like, you need to electrolyte. What kind of coach are you? You're practice what you preach. That's what I felt like I was. Yeah. But I was like, no, I'm biking and then I'm swimming and I'm cramping because it's a muscle. And so that I would think was more neurological because the muscles are tight. And then I was able to figure out the spot in my ankle that was restricted. And I did my own kind of muscle release on it. But I think that was a good example of how you have to figure out, okay, I'm doing all the things, but this is what's changed, and understand why do these come. You have to do your own little investigation or work with your health coach, practitioner, or your own athletic coach to figure out what are some things that we're missing to help figure out your solution with this.
Yeah, absolutely. And you identify that, like, it was probably, I'd categorize that as a circulatory thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Cool stuff, right?
Yeah. It's always kind of got to be curious. All right. So where can we try this out? Where should we send people? Because I'm sure they'll have lots of questions and want to learn more.
Yeah, there's actually links to a couple of the studies at picklepower.com, our website. So they can get information there. They can follow us on social media at Pickle Juice. And if they want to buy it, they can go to Amazon, or our website has a store locator on the bottom of it. Just put in your zip code and it'll direct you to one of the 17,000 stores that were sold at in the US.
Great. And then you'll be launching some new products out next year at Natural Product Show.
We're actually looking to launch some products this Q4 that are specifically developed for nighttime leg cramping. So we're excited about that. And then hopefully, as we continue to do research, we'll find some other stuff that does some other really cool things. But we're still learning ourselves. So our goal is to release something new every year.
Good. Well, keep it up. And I look forward to learning more and seeing those studies. And we'll have you back on the show to go through the new stuff.
I love it. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.